Recently, Sargon of Akkad posted a petition directed at universities to suspend the teaching of social justice courses until which time they can be reviewed for their scientific truth. A basic call for academic rigor, a close, impartial look at if what is being taught in universities actually resembles reality. Many of us are already as dismissive of someone holding a degree in social justice as someone who might be holding a degree in theology. I see Sargon's petition as a simple recategorization of this so-called field into the proper holding, that unproven ideas that don't reflect truth of our everyday reality. This is why I supported Sargon's petition. Sargon went on to express some concerns that he was receiving negative feedback from libertarians, that his call amounted to a ban on a form of free speech. And while he went on to clarify several of his points in his live stream, and I am certain as an individual he has no desire to ignore the right to free speech by banning the teaching of social justice, only to rescue the ideas of science and objectivity from the social justice movement, attempting to sell their ideas as hard science when it is anything but that. He has stated he would support the right to individuals to hold such social justice ideals and teach them, and their own privately funded madrasas for social justice. While I support Sargon's efforts, I can't fully accept his treatment of libertarians on the subject. Given how vague the wording of his petition is, it's easy to see how it can be viewed as a prelude to an authoritarian move to ban a form of speech. Just as we don't take Anita Sarkeesian at her word when she claims to not want to ban video games. The libertarian criticism is valid, if noted, would only serve to strengthen Sargon's arguments, as it seems to already have done in some ways after his live stream. The petition, by the nature of the field it's criticizing, enters into sensitive subjects like free speech and forced funding of public education. While Sargon's exact wording on the petition does not amount to a ban of social justice studies, one could easily extrapolate that in order to be truly effective, state funding would have to be cut off for any universities who continue to practice such efforts. So long as the state did not get involved, Sargon could never really have a victory in this area because of how entrenched social justice studies are in the public sector of academia. Any true victory would require his movement obtaining political power and cutting funding for these institutions. You could argue I'm implying a slippery slope, but it seems to me such a move would be required in order to end teaching of social justice in public universities. It is a move that by its nature would be authoritarian. This is not to say it's a bad move. Personally, I agree with chasing out these false ideas and pretending to be sciences. I understand its good intentions. However, it is moving into a field to say public education, which many libertarians consider inherently immoral, since it forces individuals to fund ideas and principles they do not support as individuals. Sargon seems to only want to address a single area, but ultimately this isn't possible if he wants the large-scale support of libertarians. Sargon needs to realize that it is easy to interpret his petition as a call to destroy social justice with the power of the state. That is basically a call for libertarians to break with their principle and to fight fire with fire, to fight state power with state power. Again, Sargon will claim he seeks no political move, nor desires to limit free speech. But given the nature of public education, both of these things would ultimately be necessary to get what he claims to want. The likelihood that universities, primarily beneficiaries of left-leaning government, would reform on their own at mere suggestion without the suspension of their state funding is really quite low. Just remember, it is very hard to get libertarians, much less anarcho-capitalists, to see a threat so grave that they would seek to fight fire with fire in such a way. And while Sargon can claim to have no desire to move along such a path, from my perspective, he can only really be successful if government power is shifted to reform or end public education, which necessitates the use of government power. This is where you break with libertarians, and it is a legitimate break. We can be allies to a degree, but only to which individuals are able to make their own choices with education, which frees them from the existing government social justice axis. and does not simply trap them in a new authoritarian order that conforms more closely to Sargon's sensibilities.